Hi sewing friends. So today I want to talk to you guys all about my time at uni and specifically my time at Fashion University. Because for those of you who don't know, I did a 4-year degree in fashion design and garment construction. Please admire my degree that is proudly on the wall, as it should be, because that is the most expensive piece of paper I will ever own. So, as you may have guessed from the title of this video, was Fashion University worth it? And you don't even need to wait till the end of this video, because yes, it was. There we go, video done, and we're done. So yes, it was worth it for me. But I definitely want to go into the more details of why it was worth it for me and might not be the right thing for you. So I finished high school. I took a 4-year degree. I took a gap year, and then I did a 4-year degree in fashion design. So it's worthwhile saying that I did university very differently to a lot of people in my age group. I was the only person out of my high school in my year group to graduate and then take a gap year. The only single person in my entire year group. Everyone else went off to uni. And so for that first year, I worked 4 jobs over the course of the year, and some of them 2 or 3 at a time, so that I could save enough money to do my first year of university and so that I would have no student debt. Now, the way I managed to do that was obviously working full time, but I also used my gap year to explore different things that I liked. I actually wanted to spend my gap year developing who I wanted to be rather than just chilling and relaxing, because what you've got to remember is that all of my friends were at university. I couldn't go and like hang out with my friends for the day. So what I did is I made a list of like 100 things that I wanted to do in that year, such as like do a first aid course, do some traveling, yeah, just do like all these little fun things that I've always wanted to do, if you can call doing a first aid course a fun thing. And in that gap year, I also wanted, because from the age of 9, I wanted to do fashion design. So I knew I wanted to do fashion design, but I just didn't know where, okay? So I spent that gap year also researching the different universities that I wanted to go to. And so what I found out in that year is there was a particular university that I really liked called Whitecliffe, where I eventually did end up going. And the reason I chose that particular university is because they offered night courses that I could go and see the kind of the culture of the university and learn from the lecturers on a less pressurized scale. So I was just doing a night class in fashion design, which was like sketch out a design and what pattern would you use to make this and basic sewing stuff. And then I did a fashion illustration course, which was great. I really love my tutor. And I was like, yeah, this style of learning for me works. I like this style. So like I said, I worked. I earned enough money in my gap year from working to pay for my first year of university, so I had no student loan. And I think it was like $8,000. I think it's $10,000 now. Don't quote me on that, obviously. So that's New Zealand. So it was quite a bit, obviously, but the things that made it a lot easier was that I was living at home rent-free and I was getting fed at home, so living costs weren't really a thing for me. And I basically just did that. So the reason I chose Whitecliffe over other universities is the campus that it was at, which meant I could drive to uni every single day, which made my lifestyle a lot easier instead of having to catch public transport, because driving, yes, takes 45 minutes, and public transport would be like an hour and a half each way, and I'm like, can't be doing that. And that also, my university was outside of the city, so I got free parking every day, which would make it so much easier. And also, for those of you who have studied something creative like fashion design or the art, you're having to pop out to do things all the time. So a car was actually quite handy. Okay, I've kind of broken this down into like sections that we'll go through. So the time took me 4 years to get my degree. And in that 4 years, I made how many collections? Three major collections. And from start to finish, I learned so much. Like, there is no way that I would be able to learn as much as I did anywhere else but university for what I learned. I learned so much from like garment construction, fabric, textile sourcing, construction techniques, like history of fashion, history of arts and different movements, and the things that you're exposed to at university, not from like just a lecture point of view, but from like an osmosis, like being around everyone point of view. And just the whole culture of university really suited me in that environment, because I needed the structure of, these are your lesson times, these are the things that you're being graded against, and this is what we expect of you. That suited me so well. It wouldn't suit somebody that isn't like that. And if they go against those kinds of things, I can see how university for fashion design wouldn't be suited to them, instead going straight into the industry in an apprentice kind of pathway would be. Now, I have thought back on my time at university and thought to myself, would an apprenticeship in the industry be more beneficial to me? And I've come to the conclusion that it just wouldn't be. The things that I've learned at uni was just so vast, not just in fashion design, but in like lifestyle, you know, communication, time management, work ethic, everything. It was so good because it was so concentrated for me that I really loved the university experience. So, as I mentioned, I was living at home at the time, which did make it easier. However, what it meant for me is that I basically paid for my whole university myself. So, like I said, I took a gap year, saved enough money to pay for my first year, and then all throughout university, I had a job that I worked part-time during the term and then full-time during holidays. So essentially for 4 years, I didn't have a break at all. I didn't go on holiday at all, which was very, it's considered like, if you look back on it now, like, oh, 4 years without a holiday, that's too much. And it's like, no, that's what it is. I was getting my degree in fashion design that is a creative subject that involves a lot of time and effort and mental energy, and it's gonna impact your lifestyle. So I worked gap year to pay for my first year to pay for my second for my third for my fourth. So I eventually graduated. We're at end of 2018, and I had $56 in my bank account. And so all up, my university degree was $32,000 that I paid for, not including, was it 32? Yeah, 32. Not including like course related costs, which were for your collection. I think I probably spent about close to 5,000 to 8,000 my final year. So all up, I would say those 4 years cost me around $50,000. because fashion design is such an expensive degree. And it's not just like, you know, you think of materials and fabric scissors and thread and lovely, lovely, lovely. It's things like photographers. You know, my photographer at the end of each year, $500 just for them to take photos. And then it's $350 for hiring the lighting in the studio. And then it's an extra $600 for the models for 2 hours. And then it's an extra, no jokes, $590 to buy the shoes for the models to wear to walk down the catwalk for about 50 seconds. So that is a cost you are going to have to incur some way. And it was only because I was living at home and I had worked so hard that I could, in part-time, I remember I used to work part-time at a fabric shop. And then I used to do babysitting. And then what else? I used to do just so many things just to earn enough money to pay for university. So the cost of it, take that into consideration. So there's that. I would say one of the most useful skills, definitely one of the most useful skills I learned from university was time management. 100% was time management, because with sewing and fashion design and creative things, like artists and painters and musicians will know this, the work is never done. It's never done. You will never reach the finishing point of your creative process, because it does not exist. The limit does not exist, because there is so many intricate points to it that you could always improve on. And just take into consideration, like for me, my university, my year group, my process, we didn't just have the physical work, like our collection, but we also had the management work of researching and doing internships was another one. We would have to do like 40 hours of internshipping per term or something like I remember it was like, oh my God, like there was just more and more and more constantly. And then you've got like all the essays and the research that goes into your collection, because you can't just go da 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 da, this looks pretty, I like this, I want to sew this, and that's nice. No, you have to justify your workings, essentially. You have to go, okay, for my collection, I want to showcase, sustainable sewing skills. Okay, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to do, embroidery techniques. Okay, look at the history of embroidery. Okay, look at, different embroidery techniques. Okay, how are you going to implement them? You can't just stick them on there and be okay with it. Like, it has to be specific placement. It has to be, everything in your collection had to be justified. No jokes. I had to justify the tone of ochre that I used for a merino top. And I had to link it back to like clay samples found in the Mesozoic era of Germany. Like all these things, you're just like, oh my God, there always had to be a deeper layer and deeper meaning to everything that you presented, right? So that kind of complete inner workings of it suited me, because I love doing that. And I love linking things together. That really worked for me. So time management, of course, because we had all of these things going on, you had to be good at time management. And the way that I did this in my final year, I think is so good. So during the summer holiday between year 3 and year 4, I went into our studio and I picked out my sewing space, and I went in and I completely made it my own. I wallpapered, put up shelves, and put down flooring, because I didn't like the white tiles that they had. So I put down some wooden vinyl flooring. I made this little corner completely my own because I knew I was going to be there sometimes 16 hours a day. I have to love where I'm at. Case in point, you know, if I'm going to be here for a year, I'm going to make it good. So making my space my own was fantastic because it also meant I wanted to spend time in my space, which meant I was going to get work done in my space. So that was great. I also had a year planner printed out and in my studio space. And what I did, as soon as I got any assignment, I would write the due date on it. And then every week I would have like, let's say I have something due in 10 weeks time, right? Every week I would say to myself, like, have I improved on this thing 10%? Have I worked on this thing this week? Example, we had a, what do you call it? A history of art lecture. And our lecturer, Henry, amazing. Nobody ever missed his lectures because they were so good. So basically, this lecture, the way it would go is we went through the complete history of art, starting with cavemen, right? All the way up to modern day. And it was over 2 terms, so 1 semester, 1 half of the year. So 10 weeks and 10 weeks. At the end of the 10 weeks of each term, we would have a visual multi-choice exam. Basically how it would go is during those 10 weeks, we would go through different art sections, art history movements, and you would have to identify either the painter or the era that it was in. Some of them were piss easy, like caveman, Egyptian, like easy. Other ones, literally, we were like, the Mona Lisa was one of them, like so easy. However, what I would do after each lecture every week was he would also send us the slides as well. So you didn't even have to take notes. Literally, you just sat there and you listened to the stories that he told, which made the lecture so good. So we would go through each of these art movements, and then at the end of the week, our lecturer would send us the slides. I would then print them out onto little cue cards, and I would revise them throughout the week. So the first week, obviously, it's like Egyptian, 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 caveman, caveman, Egyptian, caveman, caveman, Egyptian, Egyptian, like easy stuff. And as it grew in the term, because at the end of the term, we had an exam on these slides, essentially. As we went throughout the weeks, my little cue card stack would grow. And I would just get to lectures on time, essentially, and just sit there flicking through things. Or if I was, you know, just hanging out and, you know, I'd just go through these cue cards. And that made it so easy because when we got to week 9 of 10 and he said, guys, exam is next week, I would go, cool, I only have to learn this week's slides, essentially. And I remember so many people panicking and freaking out because they're like, oh, I didn't know we had one. I didn't know we had an exam. I thought that was next term. No. He said, at the start of this term, we have an exam at the end of this term. You just weren't listening. And you've seen me going through all these this whole time. And I remember one of the girls, we had the exam on the Friday. One of the girls asked me on the Wednesday if she could use my cue cards to take home and revise. And I was just like, no. And I'll tell you why, because I'm using them. And you don't get to take my study notes, essentially. So yeah, time management. And another thing I did is in my final year, like I said, I printed out that wall marking, ticked off everything that was done. And the first term, so I knew that at the end of the year it was going to be a complete it would just be chaos because everything is always left to the last minute and I refuse to work that way. So what I would do is in the first term, I would stay late 2-3 nights a week. The second term, 2-3 nights a week. Then the last 2 terms, 1 to 2 nights a week, I would stay late. And it's funny because when I was there early in the year getting my work done, I was the only one in the studio. And when we got to the end of the year, I finished my degree 3 weeks early. And I remember there were some people there that were there all night, sleeping in their cars, not going home because they had to get work done. People would hire, like rent hotel rooms close by so that they could get work done. And I was like, I don't want to be one of those people at all. I can foresee it happening, so I'm going to make sure that that does not happen to me. I would much rather work on this essay every day than the night before. So that is something that university instilled in me, that this is something that I take seriously. And I also think having to pay for my own way through university made it I wanted it so much more. I knew how hard I had to work to get to the next year group. I knew how hard it would be, and I didn't want to self-sacrifice in any way. I remember that some people would go out for lunch for 3 hours. I never understood that because I'm here to do my degree. I'm not here to go out and do no. And that caused problems in my year group because I was the one that got on with things. And when the lecturers said, none of you have done the essay, we're going to have to push the deadline to next week, I would go, hang on a minute. No, you said that it was due this week. It's due this week. Why are we pushing it back? Oh, because not enough people have finished it. Well, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. Like, by pushing the deadline back, you're enabling people to not time manage. And yes, I understand that things happen in life and, you know, stuff like this does happen. However, there's no accountability for time management. And that is something that I take very seriously, obviously. And so, yeah, when I graduated university, I decided to... Did my university degree help me get a job? Yes, but it was not the job I wanted. So I graduated university, end of 2018, 2019, went into it. I wanted to take 6 months off and just not be in a high pressure environment that a new job would bring. So I decided to wait 6 months. And then I did get a job in a studio, in a garment studio where I did cutting for garments and everything. And it was fine, but it wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't anything that I could see myself doing. The people there didn't like me. I didn't like them. So when I left, it was quite a relief. But I was like, oh my God, I've done a degree in this. This is what I'm supposed to be doing and I don't enjoy it. What the hell? So then we went into 2020 and I started to post more stuff online. And then it kind of led me in the direction of Ford, which was education through sewing, which is now what I absolutely love doing. And I would never go into the fashion industry because I don't enjoy the mass production side of clothing. I enjoy the small, hand-touched, meaningful garments that hand sewing produces. So, after a 25-minute video, for me, university 100% was worth it, purely from the standpoint of I learned so much about fashion design and fabrics and research into those things and the history and the garment construction and all of that. However, if you're thinking about going to university, different universities offer different things. See if you can do small courses there first. Speak to people that have graduated that course and actually see what kind of job you want to be doing after university, because the reason that I do Ford now is because I went to university and I learned all of that sewing skills and techniques that I can now pass on, which is great. But if you're someone that's wanting to just sew and do their own thing and still figuring out why they're wanting to do this, don't go. Take a gap year, go traveling, live a little, discover what you enjoy, and then work around that. So those are my final thoughts. I loved it. You might not, you might. See what works best for you. So, yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And if I could go back in time and do it again, I would. So enjoy and subscribe if you want. I try and put out videos every week, might be every 2 weeks, I don't know. So yeah, enjoy my degree that is right up there. Subscribe, bye.